Okay, so here's the basic picture frame. These are just the pieces. This is what you're drawing in SketchUp, all right, for part one. And these are the pieces that are cut. Remember in SketchUp, I showed you that each one of these pieces, all right, is exactly the same. So we have 4 identical pieces, and we put them together to make our frame, all right? And that will be the basic cuts, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so if we were doing our frame project in class, from the drawing video, you'll see we want to create a piece that looks something like this. Okay, it's 2.5 inches wide. Okay, from edge to edge, the longest dimension is 9.5 inches. Okay, and just taking a look at this piece here, we've got our miter cut at 45 on one side. We've got our straight cut for the butt joint at 90 degrees on the other. So we want to create pieces that look like this, 4 identical pieces like this. So how do we do that? All right, got to use the miter saw to do cross cuts. In class, I would give you a piece of wood that looks very similar to this, okay? So the first step to doing this is taking it and finding the halfway point, all right? You're gonna measure how long your piece is, and measure your halfway point. I'll let you guys figure that out, okay? But I'm gonna figure out my halfway point, all right? My miter saw is set for a 0 degree cut or a 90 degree cut, okay? It is set to make a 90 degree cut here. So I'm going to cut right on my center piece here, or my center marking. I bring my blade down, I'm right on the center. For you guys, I have you guys use the clamp, which holds the wood into place, so you don't have to use your hands, okay? And then we make sure it's nice and straight and flat up against the fence so that our cut is perfectly straight. We tighten it down, we check it, and then we make a cut. All right, you see when I bring the cut down, I wait until the blade completely stops, then I bring it up. So now I have a cut here, all right? And I know it's perfectly 90 degrees because I know my saw and I trust my saw, but I can check it with a square and I know I'm 90 degrees. So what I like to do is I like to make a little X, knowing that that cut is 90 degrees, all right? This piece that I also cut is also 90 degrees, okay? I could check it again, but I'm good. Perfect 90 degrees. So I want to mark it. I want to make sure all of my cut ends or all of my ends are 90 degrees. And sometimes when you get a piece of wood, you don't know that until you put it on the saw and cut it that way. So I'm going to cut this other end and make sure it's 90 degrees. Just going to take a little bit off. It's just about not even 1/8 of an inch. A tiny sliver off and make sure it's 90 degrees and then I don't have to worry about it later. Okay, wait till the blade stops, then I come back up. Okay, now that piece is at 90 degrees. I can trust it. All right, I'm going to do this last one. Clamp it down, nice and tight up against the fence. Bring it down. Wait until the blade stops completely, and I can bring it up. Now I know that all my ends are 90 degrees, okay? So now, we want to get 45 cut in here, and we need to know that it's 9.5 from this end to this end. Right? So I'll take one of my pieces here. I know I got 90 degrees here. I'm going to set my saw to 45 degrees here. It locks in place. I've got my 45 degree miter, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is measure nine and a half inches is right here, okay? That's where my 9.5 is. You can use what's called a combination square, which has a 45 degree angle on it, just to make a line right at the 9.5. This is just for visual, just to see where my line will be visually. I can put this up against the piece of wood and draw my line. So now I have my line at 45, and this is right at 9.5. Okay. Put my piece of wood in here. Again, flat up against the fence. I can bring my blade down and line it right up, right where my blade is directly on the line. Okay, but to the right of it, so that I'm not cutting this any shorter, making sure it's still at 9.5. Okay, so it's really important that you line up your cut the right way when you're going to make your cut. I want to keep this piece. We measured this out. This is 9.5. From the end here to the line is 9.5, and that's what I want to keep when I cut it. So when I bring this blade down, okay, you can see I'm a little bit off here. All right, I'm going to bring this over. Okay, I'm a little bit closer, not quite. All right. That is where I want to set up my cut, right? With the blade is to the right of the line, okay? So when I cut it, I'm barely going to leave that pencil mark. And now I know I have a 9.5 inch long piece. If I did this, if I went over and put my blade directly over the line or on top of the line, okay? Now my piece is going to be shorter when I cut it. It may only be a 1/16 of an inch shorter, but it is going to be shorter, okay? So you have to pay attention to where you're putting your blade, okay? You got to put that blade to the right of the line. That's still a little bit off, but we'll just shift it over a little bit. But if you get it right to the right of that line, okay, that's exactly where you want to cut it, and that'll give you a very precise measurement. Okay, so I'm all set up. I've got my blade set where I wanted to go. I'm ready to go with my first piece of wood, all right? But I'm going to want to repeat this cut 4 times, okay? So if I think ahead and plan ahead, I can make this really easy by using what's called a stop block, okay? Stop block is just another piece of wood, all right? This is kind of like a jig, but we're going to take this stop block, and now that this is all set here up against the fence, I'm going to put my stop block nice and tight up against my piece of wood right here. I'm all clamped down, I'm nice and tight. This wood's not going to move at all, okay? But I put my stop block right here up against that piece of wood and up against my fence, and then if I use a clamp and clamp it in place, okay, now I'm set up. It's tight here, there's no gap, there's no gaps against my fence, this is not moving. I check my cut again. All right, it's perfect. I'm going to make my cut. Wait till the blade stops, then I can pick up my blade, all right? So now I will take my piece out of here, loosen the clamp, all right? This is my piece. This is what I'm gonna use for my frame. This is 9.5, and I've got my 45, okay? I want 4 identical pieces, okay? So now that the stop block's in place, I don't touch anything in the setup. I made my X mark, knowing that I have a nice 90 here. So now I'll take my X, I'll put it into this setup, up against the stop block, up against the fence, tighten it in place. All right, double check, I have no gaps, everything's tight. I'll make another cut. Wait until it stops, I'll pick it up, okay? Now this piece will be exactly the same as my previous cut. All right, these guys are exactly the same, all right, perfectly, all right, without measuring, just by using a stop block, all right, and I could do this 2 more times, and I have all my pieces for my frame all set up with no additional measuring.